that was a very nice round of applause. So the last time somebody measured my height, I was 13 years old. I remember it vividly because I was very worried. I was becoming tall, and that was a problem because the boy that I liked was very short. At 13, I was 172 centimeters, and the boy was 160. So that was the problem. It was a tragedy, a disappointment. So, a few months later, I applied for my ID card. In my country, in Romania, you have your ID when you are 14. So, there are a few basic questions that you have to answer. Like, for instance, I remember the color of my eyes. Green, I said immediately. My height. I paused, and victoriously I said, 174. 174. Nobody had measured me again. But I had assumed that in the few months I gained 2 more centimeters. And also, 74 was much better reason for a breakup. In my teenage head, these assumptions were as solid as proof. I was not lying about my height. No, not at all. I was just shaping reality according to my perception and to my needs. I never took another height measurement again. So to this day, you look at a person who doesn't know if she is 72, 74, or something completely different. Now, some of you might want to do me a favor and to right away measure me. Some of you might say, well, it's 2 centimeters, more or less. Who cares? Let's assume that we live in this strange country where only tall people, like above 72, have access to something. Let's assume that that is happiness. So only people 172 and above can be happy. All the others of us, or actually of you, would be unhappy, totally unhappy. So, in that case, those 2 tiny centimeters really matter a lot, right? Well, we already live in a country like that. You know, there are millions of children who don't have access to education, to an identity, to life itself, because our bureaucratic systems are too complex, because our legislation is not implemented, because we don't take the time to measure the gap between what we promise to children in law and what we give to children in practice. So when it comes to children, we know exactly what we have to measure to give them a happy life. 25 years ago, more than that actually, which is a quarter of a century ago, right? Quarter of a century ago. Humanity has created the most beautiful document in the entire history, the United Nations Convention for the Right of the Child, the UNCRC, the most ratified treaty in the world. It includes all those rights that humanity thinks that children should have. So what happens when you don't judge yourself by the universal standard, by the UNCRC? Without rigorous measurement, we can say anything about the system. We can pretend that the system works wonderfully. There are myths about the child protection systems in our countries. And these myths have very high costs: the lives of boys and girls. So this is why 4 years ago, approximately, World Vision and Child Pact, the Regional Coalition for Child Protection, and all Child Pact members decided to start measuring the child protection systems according to a set of common standards. Standards that would be the same across the globe in all the countries. But where to find those standards? We went back to the UNCRC, which is the most ratified treaty in the world. So, UNCRC is such a long document. There are 54 articles. So we took 13 out of them, the ones that speak about child protection. We spent almost 2 years with the UNCRC implementation handbook. And thousands of work hours later, we came out with 626 indicators. And we call that the Child Protection Index. The next step was to apply those indicators to individual countries to show how they meet the UNCRC requirements. That was a very big task. But do you know how to eat an elephant? Well, it's bite, bite, bite. So, to make sure that the elephant aphorism applies to us, we first piloted the child protection system to see if we can really do it one bite at a time. And to be really, really sure about our ability to do that, we piloted in 9 different countries. 9 bites, 9 different countries across Eastern Europe. And here is what we learned. 4 things I will share. First of all, compiling the Child Protection Index was much easier than we expected. It did require a huge amount of coordination and work. Here are just a few facts that I will share with you. In each country, each indicator has been reviewed by at least 2 different experts. Almost 100 different experts from a lot of countries have contributed. We created 9 different country reports and 1 interactive online visualization platform. We offered more than 200 recommendations for improved legislation and services to more than 400 decision makers and experts. But in the end, that was easy to do. Because we joined forces, we shared the burden. In every country, we created a task force with World Vision experts, Child Pact experts, and the Child Pact member in that country. So this level of partnership was one of the main keys for success. I cannot emphasize enough how important this partnership approach was for the index, strategically and intellectually. The second lesson is related to something we didn't expect. We didn't expect the index to be a myth buster. Some countries realized that their record is much better than they actually had expected. So that was cause for joy. Some other countries fared, their record was much worse. So that was cause for discussing the methodology, which was excellent, and it was a gift for us because we had the chance to improve the methodology to a level that makes us very confident now that we have an even better instrument for the next edition of the research. Thirdly, we learned a lesson about simplicity. Some countries realized that it would be very easy to improve their score if they took some simple measures. Sometimes we are in a bad situation just because we do not know how simple it would be to do better. A fourth lesson is about comparison and motivation. Some countries loved to be compared to other countries. Of course, these were usually the top, the countries on the top of the list. Some others didn't like it very much. But for all the experts, this was an amazing learning opportunity because they all had aha moments like, so if country X could make it, why can't we make it? Or, how did they do that, actually? Let's go and ask there. There is expertise in our own region. Fantastic. To give you just a glimpse of the results of the index, let's look at a country graph. I took Albania here, but you can go online and look at all the other 8 countries. So here is information about law and policy. So Albania scores 67 out of a possible 100 according to the UNCRC standard. Okay, so this color here. There's a gap, meaning that Albania's child protection legislation is only moderately aligned with the UNCRC, right? This is the conclusion that we can draw from here. Okay, this is not that bad. Look at services, the yellow here. Services scores 31 out of a possible 100. That is bad. But let's for a second forget about the UNCRC standard, right? Let's just compare Albanian standard, meaning Albanian legislation, with the services. There's a big gap. So even compared to themselves, this is a very big gap. And you can immediately see why the gap when you think about capacity, right? Capacity says something about the investment that a country makes in human resources and infrastructure. Capacity here is 24 out of 100. Let's look at accountability here. Accountability says something about the quality of the services. So, quality of services is 49 out of 100 possible. So, in this country, not only the services are very few, but their quality is also questionable. So, we have all this information. How does it help us improve children's lives? Well, it will not. The truth is that information alone is going to be useless. Only people in power who have this information and decide to do something with it will actually make some changes. And this is why, to us, for World Vision and Child Pact United, this is an advocacy tool before anything else. It is a bit early to claim tangible results for children's lives after just piloting. But we know two things. Firstly, when we launched the Child Protection Index in places like Bucharest, Tirana, Sarajevo, Yerevan, even in Brussels, we did a nice launch in Brussels, there was huge media and expert interest. More importantly, decision makers in all 9 countries listened. And now we have a new generation of child protection legislation, national strategies, and action plans that are being not only approved, that's easy, but also implemented. Second, we have enough evidence to be able to predict that if we can locate the dysfunctional areas in the child protection systems, and if the decision makers will decide to address those dysfunctionalities, then fewer children will be invisible for the child protection systems. I am very proud of the index and of the team who made it possible. Just very few people here. The 100 is with us. And I think that the index will spread across the globe. I believe that this is going to be a global instrument because it is a very simple idea that not only provides evidence that leads to action, but it brings people together to implement the most beautiful treaty that humanity has ever created. What can be more inspiring than that? Thank you very much for your attention. I leave you with the promise that if I will ever measure my height again, or any other thing in the world, I am going to do it against reality, as the Child Protection Index is measuring. So if you want to learn more about the Child Protection Index or any other work that is being done for Evidence for Change here at World Vision, there is a website that I invite you to look at, and it's www.evidenceforchange.org.